What's my name?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the What's My Name show. My name is Chemda, and today's guest is Chanel Ali.
Hi, guys.
Chanel is a recent CatGo Award winner, Best New Guest.
Oh, my gosh.
You're amazing.
Thank you so much.
I
Thank
can't
you.
say that I'm glad, but I'm pleased. It was a tough competition, and
Yeah.
you stood out.
I remember looking at all the nominations and I was like, oh man, I don't know. And then I was like, well, I do have a lot of episodes, don't I? And then I was like, I don't know. I'll just wait until she texts me. I'm not going to check it anymore. I'm just going to pretend like I'm very busy and we'll see what happens.
Well, you did great. Apparently that works. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And you have talked on Keith and the Girl about being a foster kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that was like first episode. That was heavy, right?
Yeah, but
it was good because we jumped right in. And then, now you guys are my parents.
I love that.
Yeah. I'm really good at making people my parents.
I'm accepting that. I love it. But so that's what we're going to be talking about today is the foster care system. And you've been in there since you were very young and until you aged out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would consider that your whole life.
Yeah. And to me, I think because I never had, a consistent mother or father, I just was never settled. So there were some times when I lived with people who were not assigned to me by, DIFUS or something like that, but it still felt like, a foster home. But definitely I was in the system moving through foster homes for a good period of like my adolescence.
Well, I want to start from the beginning because one of the questions, and I posted that I'm going to be interviewing you on Facebook.
I know. I was reading them on the train.
Amazing questions. We're going to get to some of them later. But one of them was, did you know your parents?
Yeah.
Now, I know that for the first couple of years, at least your mom was a part of your life. Am I right?
Yeah. I lived with my mom until I was about 2. And I guess that was the first time that, Child Services intervened and they decided that she was unfit, know.
Do you know why?
I really can only speculate, but I feel pretty knowledgeable on the subject. I feel like I have a good understanding of what was happening, and I think she
at 2 or
now.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like when I look back on it, I think I do understand that she probably had experimented with drugs at some times in the 80s, and had been left less than whole because of those experiences. So whether she was using at that time when I was 2, I don't know, but she obviously wasn't taking care of me in a way that the system thought was fit.
That's interesting because I would guess that later when you have questions about your biological parents, that the system would have that information for you while you were taken away, and that as an adult you would be able to ask. So,
well, I mean, I lived with her for a while. I lived with her and she had visitations.
Oh, she did?
Mm-hmm. While I was in the system, especially in South Jersey where she lived, she had visitation pretty often, I would say.
So you never fully lost touch with your mother?
I did lose touch with her once I moved outside of Jersey. Like sometimes I was placed in Pennsylvania, and then I had an uncle in Alaska.
Wow.
And I lived with him for a while out there.
Wow.
And then, so I was going wherever they had a bed, pretty much, if they had room.
So that's what was interesting about this. I know you mentioned your grandmother on Keith and the Girl, and when we talk about your foster, because she was the first person that they left you with,
right?
And this was outside of the government, and you just mentioned an uncle, and so I think one of the first questions come to mind is, why did you even have to get into the foster care system?
I guess there was a time when people weren't in a position that they could take me in, like my uncle was in Alaska. So I don't think he even knew for a while what was happening in New Jersey. I don't think he knew. So I got placed with my grandmother at 2. I lived with her for a few years. Then DIFUS intervened again.
And because of your grandmother this time?
Yes, because of my grandmother that time.
Now, I think at this point you're 7 years old, right?
Yeah, I'm like 6, 7. Yeah.
Do you
Couple
remember
years.
your childhood that young?
Yeah, I do, because I felt like so much was happening. So much was happening.
So you remember your grandma?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember feeling like we were not safe.
Why?
I think she, was older, she wasn't in a position, and I think she had been experimenting with drugs. And I think maybe all of those experiences had left her, less than whole. I think it was that era. I just think that people were smoking crack in Camden, New Jersey, and some of them were able to get away from these things and fix their lives, and some of them weren't. And at that period, my mother wasn't, and then my grandmother wasn't.
And did you always feel like she had an issue, or did you see a decline in her behavior and in her mannerisms?
From as early as I can remember being, a person, I remember living with my grandmother originally, probably 3 and 4 is when I can remember back. And I remember knowing that, she was unfit. I remember knowing that this wasn't normal, We were not,
You weren't being cared for.
Yeah, we weren't being cared for with a lot of love.
So there was an indifference.
Yeah, and, she was abusive in a lot of ways. She was definitely abusive.
So when she did give you attention, was it hitting? Was it yelling?
All of it. It was all of it. I'm sorry to get so choked up so soon, but
I think that's fair.
Yeah, like we got out of that situation because a doctor noticed bruises,
Who's we?
Me and my little brother. Yeah.
So your little brother was getting hit?
No, I don't think so. At that time, he was an infant. So he's maybe 2, I'm 6. And we're at the doctor he's getting a checkup. And
now, how did you get to the checkup?
With my grandmother.
So she was with it enough to follow up on certain things?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think she was in denial. I think she thought she was taking good care of us. But
because
I also
she
think
was functioning on a lot of levels.
Yeah, and when you're doing drugs, I think you're not living in reality. So we go to the doctor, and the doctor knows. The doctor, I felt like he could smell it on us, like something is wrong here. And maybe
does that make you scared as a kid that somebody's noticing?
Terrified that he was going to say it then.
Right, because I think the first thought that we have is, oh, good, someone's going to save you.
Absolutely.
But I think from your perspective,
it was, what if he doesn't save us? And then we have to go back and deal with the aftermath of this. I don't know. I remember thinking, I don't know if we will survive if something is inflamed here. And luckily, he was able to keep it together and be professional and notify whoever he notified, after the fact or quietly. Because
you left there questioning whether you had that right because he didn't flinch?
No. I remember thinking maybe he knows because he did touch me. I remember him noticing something is, this girl is bruised. This girl is injured. And I remember thinking he understands immediately. He understands. But he may not say anything, He may not care enough about us,
Right.
But then 2 days later, I remember getting out of school and people saying, you have to get in this car. People in suits saying, we have to get in this car. We're taking you now. And then they drive us back to my grandmother's house. And
did you go?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was being kidnapped. It was like the teacher is there and they're saying, we have your grandmother and we have, you need to come with us. Some things are, I don't remember them telling me many specifics, but
you understood.
Yeah, I understood.
These are the people on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember understanding that.
And did you have an emotional response in outward or inward?
I don't remember the specifics, like driving in the car, how I was feeling. But I remember when we pulled up to the house, it was swarming with people in suits that were grabbing my things and putting them in a bag. And my grandmother is screaming, no, you can't take these kids. And there's just, it's people are out in the streets watching what's happening. This house is getting ripped apart, And I remember thinking, oh my God, it's happening. Oh my God, we're being saved, oh my God, it's happening,
You're having a positive
absolutely.
response.
And I'm feeling incredibly thankful, thinking that, especially for my little brother who was so small then. I remember thinking, oh my God, he's going to be, because I remember thinking, I've mastered surviving here, this crazy house. I've mastered it. But this kid, like this baby, I can't, how are we going to make it? And then I remember thinking, we have a chance. Wow. These people, whoever these people are, in these suits, I don't know. They're taking my toys, some of them, they're putting them in a bag. We're going to be fine.
Did you feel anything for your grandmother?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at that point in my life, she was the only person that had shown me what I knew to be as love. So,
So her losing it, you didn't seem to second guess that still was a good decision.
We needed to get out of there. I knew that. But I remember thinking that maybe if someone could teach her to treat us a little differently, maybe even that would be better, But, I was a child. So now I feel like I've reconciled with those things, and I have an understanding that she wasn't in her right mindset,
So you get into the car, your stuff is packed for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And where do you imagine you're going, and where did you actually go?
Well, as the people were packing up things and we're getting ready to leave, my teacher, who was my first grade teacher at the time, she pulls up miraculously, and she basically negotiates with them to take me for a while.
Do you know how she even...
I really have no idea. Oh,
they did pick you up from school.
They did.
So they must have informed your teachers.
Maybe they gave my grandmother an option. Maybe they said, you can pick who's going to take them for now until we find a better placement. I'm not sure about the specifics.
Was your teacher certified? You have to have a certain certification to foster a child, right?
I don't think then I was in the system yet. I don't think so. I think that was just them, getting me out of the care of my grandmother. And
I guess I didn't know that they could do that because she's not family.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were sort of going around something.
I wonder that as well. I really don't know. And I remember not fully understanding how she knew, really, the gravity of what was happening, But I remember living with her for a few weeks, like really going with her to school every day,
How was the adjustment to that?
It was crazy because I remember her telling me that I couldn't tell anyone, Yeah, I remember her.
Why is that?
I think she probably believed that DYFS was wrong. I think that everyone probably believed that my grandmother wasn't,
Oh.
And so they wanted to kind of rally around her and try to help until she could, convince them. But
so your teacher seemed to be convinced that this was so temporary that you shouldn't even tell people because everything will be back to normal.
Yeah.
Did you believe her at the time?
I felt like as long as I wasn't going back, I didn't really, to me, I didn't really care where we were. I just didn't want to go back there. So, even if I was living with someone that maybe believed that we weren't, in a dangerous situation before, I didn't really care about that. I was like, it's not your decision, obviously, because they've taken us from there and they've said that that's unsafe. So we're not,
You assume that will be clear.
Yeah.
Did you feel love from her?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I felt like at the time she did something pretty big for us, and I felt like she probably endangered her career. Probably, I don't know what the rules are for kidnapping kids, or I'm just kidding, just like letting kids live with you. I don't know, but it definitely felt like she had good intentions. That it definitely felt like that. Yeah.
Did you have her as the teacher also?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was my teacher at the time.
Did you make sure somehow or have it in your mind to not treat her like mom-ish?
It wasn't that long, it wasn't that long of a time that I was living with her, just a couple of weeks, I would say.
So you didn't feel a permanence or?
No, it really is kind of like there's a list of people that I lived with before foster homes, and some of them had strange connections, like my teacher or my neighbor or, just people who I think really wanted to rally around my grandmother.
I see.
And I think they also knew that us being in foster homes was maybe more dangerous, or
Because then
not
you're
as
lost
healthy.
into the system.
And it would be much more unlikely that my grandmother could get us back, or that my mother could get us back, because my mother has already lost us. Now my grandmother has lost us. And so I think that they wanted to help, or they thought they were helping, by trying to prolong it until maybe my mother is, healthy again and maintaining a job.
That seems logical.
It does, yeah.
It seems like you would also get not just, lost in the system if you went in the system, but if you got kept out of the system, the volunteers seem to logically say would be more loving towards you or more caring because, like you were mentioning, they were a part of your life already.
Yeah.
So they were volunteers from a sort of different realm in your brain, it feels like.
Absolutely.
But as I'm talking to you, it seems like
I don't feel connected to them.
No,
because once we were in foster homes, I never heard from those people again.
And you expected to?
No, no, but that was because my interpretation of foster homes before going into them was based on their reaction to it, So I understood that it was about to be different. Whatever was about to happen was going to be different, and it was going to be less likely that my mother was going to come back one day, as much time passed, because I remember being young and thinking well, this is just temporary. My mother's going to get her things together and she'll come get us. And then I remember being older, being maybe 9 and 10, and realizing that that was much less likely. And then I remember being in high school and realizing well, it's done, this much time has passed.
Right.
And, I'm still in this weird realm of no home,
So before you were in the system, they gave you that understanding that begins the panic button a little bit.
Absolutely.
And so were you trying to be extra good? Did you have a response?
I think I was always a really good kid. Honestly, I really think I was always a really good kid. I don't think, if we were in a place that felt safe, I was never complaining,
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to stay there as long as possible.
Did your brother have a response to it? I know he was very young at this point.
He was very young, yeah.
So did he just kind of follow you around,
Yeah.
sort of like you were his home, so he didn't really notice as much?
Absolutely. I remember having candid conversations with him, explaining that I was not his mother and that I was his sister, and that we are moving to these places and living with these people,
And what would he say?
And he would say, okay, but, call me mom. He would still call me mom, but, eventually he got older and he began to understand more. But he's much more quiet than I am. He's much more self-reflective than I am. So we haven't, or I would say back then, we didn't really discuss the gravity of it back then. Not too much.
Right.
And we wanted to be hopeful, we wanted to enjoy, if we had visitation with my mother, we wanted to enjoy that and believe that maybe she was going to get better and, maybe this was temporary. And so I felt like for a long time, that was our circulating thought, is maybe this is going to get better. So we just deal with it for right now,
And so amongst the people that you knew, was there a bad person? Was there, it seems to be very neutral, negative, but sort of more somber experiences than abusive. Amongst the pre-system, was there someone who you didn't feel safe with or had negative intentions?
No, I wouldn't. No, I felt like the people that we lived with outside of foster homes had good intentions. Yeah, I would say that. Like some of them had their own kids, so they really didn't have room for us
Mm.
And I remember feeling like, there isn't obviously enough food here for all of these people, in some places. But all of those people were, people like you and I would say. They were people that had space in their home and wanted to help us. But once we entered into foster care, I felt like those people were different. Some of those people were different because they were getting paid
And
to
you could
have
feel
foster
that?
kids. Absolutely.
Why?
Because a lot of them had their own children, and you can feel that distance when you see someone, even if we're just talking about money, when you see someone spending money and spending time and investing in their child, raising their child, and when you're not getting that same attention, there's a difference.
What kind of attention were you getting?
Let's say I remember living in a foster home in Jersey that was like a big Victorian home. And the woman and the man, they had, I think they were husband and wife. I'm pretty sure they were married. They had 2 sons of their own, and they shared a bedroom. But I slept in the attic of this home in like a side corner bed that was, kind of connected to, like, it was kind of built into the wall. And it was carpeted up there, but they kind of negotiated this conversation with me. Like, it makes more sense for you to be up here because we have some carpet here and there's some toys up here, but your sons, the kids that you gave birth to, they have bedrooms in this Victorian home that has tons of bedrooms,
Where was your brother?
He was an infant at the time. I remember him sleeping in like a bassinet
Next
type.
to you?
No, I remember it was in the living room is where they kept the bassinet. And I remember they had walkie-talkies set up on like every floor of the house to make sure that like kids were, where they were supposed to be and that people weren't moving. And I remember it being such an ongoing thing of trying to go down and visit my little brother in this bassinet without them hearing me. I remember it being a constant battle in that house to sneak down 4 flights of wooden stairs in this Victorian house and try to check on him,
What would they do if they caught you?
They would walkie-talkie. They would they were baby monitors. They would baby monitor and say, get back in bed, or, why are you walking around? Things, whatever. And I started to just mess with those things and steal a battery if I could. And oh man, it was an ongoing thing in that house. And I felt like in every house there was something that was like, these people are taking care of us, but I still have to keep my wits about me, and I still have to,
Well, let's talk about the first one, because I think it seems like there was a shift going into the system, and I actually know the part of the story, at least, of the first time you got placed.
Yeah.
You got placed without your brother.
Yes.
And you were 7?
Yeah.
And he was 2?
Yeah, maybe 1.5, maybe.
So really young, can't really speak.
Yeah, no. Baby.
Yeah.
He's a baby.
And so you're in the system. You're already, it sounds like, nervous because this is the thing that everybody's warning you about. So you're on high alert.
Yeah.
What was the home like?
It was a single family home. I remember it was a young couple.
Did anyone talk to you before you met these people?
A social worker definitely explained what was happening.
How do you think that person did?
I would say she did well. I mean, I was still a child, so I felt like I already knew. I felt like I already knew what was happening for the most part. But I felt like she tried to break it to me softly, I would say. Okay. She was kind of like, your mommy is sick and we're hoping she's going to get better, and your grandmother is sick. But until then, you're going to stay with these people until we find, something more permanent, or until they get better. And
is that a fair, would you have explained that to you that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like it was reasonable.
Okay.
Because I was so young.
Okay.
But I think I remember also knowing, like, I know she's not sick, Like, I remember knowing that and being like, I want to say this so bad to you people, but you're always making me feel like I'm just way too young to even engage with. So
Wow, you know what? I would think the same thing too.
Yeah.
What do you tell a 7-year-old other than this person is sick, because they are,
yeah,
but you know it's not a cold.
right. Because
So how do you even associate something with it?
yeah, like how do you even start that dialogue? I don't know. That's why I say I feel like they did as best as they could.
Okay.
But even still, I do remember feeling like I know she's not sick, you know? Like, and if she's sick, then how much longer is she going to be sick like this? Because
Right, usually there's a diagnosis.
It's been a while, you know? So
Okay, so then this same person takes you to the home
yeah,
and
to
walks
each home.
you to the door of
Yeah.
this first place?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And they introduce you. Does she sit with you for a while with the couple?
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember they had a really cute home, you know? You could tell that they had a lot of kids come through there, or that they had a lot of kids at the time, because I remember there were tons of toys.
So
I remember just toys everywhere.
for a minute, were you thinking maybe people were wrong and this is going to be lovely?
Yeah, I was like, look at all these toys. What are you talking about? I was like, foster homes are great because they have to have a plethora of toys to please various types of kids, right? But I remember that feeling being pretty short-lived.
When did that stop?
I mean, I remember them kind of giving me a tour of the house, and I remember the social worker leaving, and then I remember having the conversation of, okay, well, when does my brother come?
That was the first thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I kind of had been patient until then, I felt like. Because to me, it seemed like he should have been in the car with me. Like, why did you...
Right. So you thought, okay, I scoped out the place. We're all in agreement. As big sister, stamp of approval. Where's my brother?
Because then I was, going to school every day still. I was still in Camden, New Jersey. So I was still going to school every day at my same school.
Up until now, you had no break in school.
Right.
Okay.
None significant, But so it's just, I get out of school one day, the social worker picks me up. She takes me to this first foster home. And I'm expecting someone else to come with my brother soon, And, I ask them as casually as I can.
You're aware that you have to be calm about it?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you just...
I was open. I really anticipated that they would say, he'll be here tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
But I remember asking them and them kind of casually being like, oh, I don't think they're going to bring him to this house. And I remember being like, oh no. These people.
Like, were you thinking, did I ask it wrong? Let me ask it again.
No.
You knew.
Yeah.
And
I was like, they don't understand how serious this is. They don't understand how important it is for us right now, especially here at this stage, to be together.
Why did you understand that?
Because I understood that he was a baby, and I understood that up until that point, I had been his primary caregiver. So to me, it seemed crazy that I wouldn't know where he was or if he was eating. Like, it seemed like you can't possibly just separate us.
That's a lot to know as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I felt like as long as I can remember him being alive, it was a constant concern of mine. Yeah, absolutely.
So they let you know this isn't the case. He's going somewhere else. What did you do?
I went up to their glass table and I grabbed an edge of it, kind of like just a table. I just picked it up and flipped it and just broke it.
And were you as calm as how you just described it? Or did you look them in the face like, what?
No.
Because this is so scary sounding.
Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt crazy. But I felt like we've already escaped so much. In my head, that's what I remember feeling. Like, we've already escaped so much. I'm not afraid of anything at this point. I'm not afraid to make adults understand how serious I am.
Why flip a table? Why, like,
Like,
another 7-year-old would just yell and scream,
yeah,
maybe throw something.
yeah. I just remember feeling like the gravity of this requires me to break something in here.
What would it? Do you remember the looks on their faces?
Yeah, I remember shock, just utter shock, panic.
Who said the first words after that?
I always refer to them as like the dad and the mom. But I remember the dad being like, "Okay, honey, all right. Okay, honey, all right. Listen, we're gonna call and she was like, come on, get out of the glass, get out of the, whatever." Because she was, they were concerned. I think they were pretty nice people, I would say. But
That sounds like a reasonable response.
yeah. I think that,
Were you like, okay, now we understand. Your
Yeah.
panic lets me know that.
yes,
Okay. So
because I remember him being like, I'm gonna call them right now and find out and tell you. Absolutely.
now I know that you remained a quote good kid after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
It sounds like.
some would say like, okay, that's how you got your way. That's how you it informed your decision, your mind on how to deal with adults when they're not listening. Why, when the teacher maybe said you can't go to the bathroom, did you not overturn something in
Yeah.
school?
I think that I did things as a kid to survive, I think. And none of them were ever things that got me in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, flipping the table definitely was drastic, but I was a good kid. I always had good grades, I never got a detention, not once in childhood. Never ever, got ostracized for being disruptive or even disrespectful in any of these homes. But if I had to stand up to someone and argue on behalf of me and my brother, I would do it all day.
How often did you have to do that?
All the time. I had to stand up to adults all the time. I had to stand up for people when they would say that they thought certain things were best for us, or that
Like what along the way?
I remember wanting my little brother to experience things like a regular kid. I wanted him to be able to enjoy like after school activities and things like that. And I remember trying to have these conversations with people who are not your parents, and it really coming down to money, and being them being like, we don't have the money to pay for him to get this uniform. Or
How do you combat that? Some people don't have the money.
absolutely, but if you have your own children that you have the money for in the same household, then it feels like an obvious slight. And
so you would assess, if you have your own kids and they have uniforms, then my brother can have one too.
Yeah,
So you wouldn't
have the
ask-
option. And if it meant that I had to work, that I had to do whatever, then I would do it.
Did you change your foster parents' minds about, did they shell out money when you asked them to?
I don't remember ever receiving money from them, like cash. I don't remember ever seeing that money. Like, I'm sure that they used it for things like rent, maybe, or bills. I'm sure.
But did they use it for after school stuff when you?
Not that I saw.
No.
Not that I saw. To me, it seemed like these people, they used these kids to help survive,
That is what the foster care system is known for. They're known for people misusing the system to make money, to either make ends meet or make more than that, abuse the kids or not pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Is this across the board?
I don't know. I don't know.
In your experience?
In my experience, yes. And it's really unfortunate that I have to admit that, but I don't remember any of those homes being on the up and up. I don't remember that. And I'm talking the long list, the long realm of bad things. I really just,
Why were social workers not seeing this?
Because, these kids are coming from homes that are already broken. So maybe the problems in this foster home are brand new. You know, like I felt like my mother struggled with drugs. Yes, my grandmother struggled with drugs. My grandmother was abusive, I would say, in a lot of different ways, but I never felt like there was any sexual issues in any of those homes. Whereas in certain foster homes, I felt like I witnessed other kids, and I witnessed a cycle of, oh, these kids come into this home and then this will happen to them.
You say you witnessed it.
Yeah.
Did it happen to you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you witnessed it and then understood that it was coming?
Yes, but I was a child, so I didn't, I remember thinking it was a game. I remember being convinced, like, this is a game. I trust these people in this home that are telling me that this is an okay activity. And I remember being older and reflecting on it and then understanding what the cycle was in that house and how I had played into it when I lived there, and how, I was lucky that I only lived in that home for a year. I was lucky there. But I remember understanding the bigger picture was that, these people have a foster home and there's nefarious activity happening in this foster home. And so because it is a product that kind of has kids coming in and out, that's what's going to happen here.
As you're telling me the story, I'm livid. I'm emotional.
Yeah,
I
know.
Even though we know that it's like similar to how we know how terrible jails are and how much people get raped. And
it makes me so sad whenever I talk about foster care and people are automatically like, oh, geez, how'd you make it? That had to have been crazy. That had to have been horrible. And it makes me so sad that for my case, the answer is yes. It was all of those things. But I really hope that it's not like that anymore. And I really hope that maybe in this area, homes were less unfit than in other places. I hope that. I genuinely hope that. But I don't know.
Did you watch it? Did you watch it happen to your brother as well?
No, I didn't.
Did you guys ever talk about it?
I feel pretty confident that my brother never experienced any of that. I do. But I think it was also because he was so young, because he was a toddler then. So maybe,
when you happened to be in that house.
Mm-hmm. So maybe he escaped it by virtue of just not being around during those times,
How did you ever tell anyone this?
Yeah. Later in life, yeah.
Who did you tell?
I feel like I told my college boyfriend. I feel like was the first person I told. But I feel like I haven't had too many conversations with people when they ask me directly about things that were happening in those homes. I feel like I haven't had that many conversations. Specifically, like, like they would ask, well, were they nice to you? And I'm like, well, sometimes, yeah. But I feel like not that many people have really asked, what was really happening in some of those places.
That's what my next question is, but I know that's asking a lot.
What
was happening? What do you mean they're cycling? Are they having sex with the children?
Oh, no. I wouldn't say it was like a sex ring. I wouldn't say it was like something as extreme as that, but if you have, imagine a home, a regular 4-person home, a mother and father, 2 kids, okay? So they live a pretty comfortable life and they're in a position where they think they can now take in these foster kids. And now these foster kids come in and some of them have come from very damaged homes. And now they're interacting with these regular kids, you would say, I feel like sometimes those kids could, like those biological kids could develop unhealthy feelings towards these foster kids. And so I feel like it created, you know.
Oh, so it was the kids making up the games.
Yeah, but not like kids our age, like high school kids, you know, like college kids who are living at home still. But these are the kids of these parents who have foster kids now. And
why the kids? Why does that change their...
I mean, that's not across the board. That's just what
Right.
I experienced. Like, I'm sure there were foster homes where the foster parents themselves were doing all types of things, you know?
So I could see how there would be a delay in understanding that that is not normal because it was other, quote, kids.
But,
But
I mean, I can't speak for all foster homes. I don't know.
But speaking for yourself, did you want to say something to someone?
What do you mean?
Well, when you realized, you know, that
That stuff was happening?
yeah.
I feel like that particular foster home later in life, those parents did reach out to me. And I don't think, if I had to guess, I would say they didn't know, and they still probably don't know. But they were curious as to why I didn't respond. And to me, I felt like I can't respond because, you know, people were getting molested in your home. Foster kids were getting molested in your home. And that's something I know because I was there and because I saw it and because I experienced it. And it's not my responsibility to invite you people into my life or to forgive you for creating this situation or this opportunity and not recognizing that these kids were getting hurt.
Do you want to tell them now? Do you write these? Sometimes I do this. I write the letter in my head, but to actually sit and write it is so much work because you'd have to be doing all the work for them and then handing it to them.
I don't know. I feel like I've only had a couple of experiences where I really devoted too much energy to it. But I don't know if it would bring me more peace to tell them to their face. I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like I have made as much peace with it as I can. I feel like, because I felt very triumphant in that I live my life each day not feeling, you know, weighed down by that stuff.
How? When people expect you as a foster kid to be the most broken and the most damaged. And in a lot of ways, it did happen to you, all the things that people consider when they think of a foster kid.
Yeah. So how do I smile? And
yeah, I mean, I know that everyone has their stuff, and some people, it was their biological parents that regularly abused them sexually or physically. Yeah.
I think obviously I had to do therapy a couple of times. I do remember feeling very suicidal, I would say around age 10. I remember feeling very suicidal.
Why around that age?
Because life had been pretty difficult before that, dealing with my mother and my grandmother and then the foster homes. But it seemed to not be getting easier. It seemed like every new situation was a new set of things I had to navigate, you know, like, you know, in this home, this person drinks too much. Okay, well, this is something I have to navigate. Okay, in this home, it's more severe, you know. Okay, this is something we have to navigate. But I remember at 10 specifically just feeling really exhausted, just feeling very tired. And, you know, I feel like sometimes that depression really manifests very physically. And I remember feeling like I was just in a ton of pain. And I wanted to just, you know, it just didn't seem like there was a way out.
What kept you alive?
You know, I couldn't imagine leaving my little brother with the weight of everything else and me, you know? Like, if I was gonna survive, I was gonna survive at least to give him a chance to survive. And it's unfortunate that I can only pin that love and that relationship on my reason for breathing. But back then, that's all it was.
What's your relationship with your brother like now?
It's great. It's a normal brother and sister relationship. I would say he is my half brother, and I feel like people often make that distinction because we have different dads. But we're very close and we're very connected, and I felt like we're as healthy as we can be in these circumstances, I think. Really.
Do you talk about it?
Sometimes. I mean, every once in a while, I feel like, my mother will maybe try to contact one of us, or, we might hear that someone saw her maybe or something like that. And we have had very, in-depth conversations about all of these things. But for the most part, we're both very resigned to moving forward.
What do you do when your mom tries to get in touch with you?
For the most part, I used to just ignore the call if I could pinpoint the number. But
was there a time where you decided that, because it
Yes.
sounded like she was in and out of your life?
Yeah. I remember after age 7, like once I really started moving around a ton, the visits were less and less. But then I remember a period between maybe 8 and high school that I didn't see her physically for years and years.
Did you want to see her?
Yeah, absolutely. Because back then I was still resigned to the idea that she was going to get better and that she was working on it and that she was going to come get us, but,
Did you ask about it? Did they mention it? Or was it just this?
yeah, it was something I felt like she would always say. I'm getting a new job and I'm going to come get you guys soon.
Oh, so she was in touch,
Mm-hmm.
but you
So
didn't
she
see
would
her.
write letters sometimes, or she would call, but I didn't see her physically for, I would say, maybe 7 years, like a period of about 7 years.
That's a long time.
Incredibly long time. And that was when our relationship obviously shifted, because that's such a chunk of me becoming a young person and still, just taking care of my little brother and managing all of these changes. So,
How long did you believe her for?
man, years and years. I would say I was probably in junior high when I realized, like, oh man, she's not, this is, you can tell when people are like, yeah, well, if you're still in the foster homes, then, you'll go to prom and they'll give you, hopefully you'll be able to save up money and, things like that. But then the conversation starts to shift to like, no, you should just start preparing for these things, because
Who is preparing you for that?
Me, obviously. But like the social workers, and I would have like candid conversations, I felt like, with the foster parents about like, my mom, I don't think my mom is coming anytime soon. Like,
And would they try to convince you otherwise?
no, I don't think so. No. And a lot of them, they wanted to be real with me. They wanted to be honest with me.
Did you appreciate that?
Absolutely. But we didn't have conversations like that until I was much older, I would say. And back when we first were in the foster homes, nobody knew for sure. Some people, I'm sure, wanted to believe that maybe she would get better and that she would come get us, because I'm sure that some kids have, that ending to the story.
So when you decided that she's not coming back, she still kept trying to contact you?
Every once in a while. Yeah, like for maybe, say, my birthday or maybe Christmas,
So then you kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah, and so then if a number pops up and it's not a number that I recognize and it's my birthday, pretty much if it's a Jersey number, I would know for a while. And I would let it go to voicemail and I would listen to it. But I remember deciding that it was more hurtful than healthy,
Did you go back on that though?
I have, yeah. I would say I've answered more recently.
Why?
Because at the end of the day, I do feel that connection that this is my mother and that I want to be respectful, to listen if she wants to talk, but to protect myself as much as possible. So I know that if I'm having a conversation with her and she's asking me for money, or she's asking, for something that is unreasonable, then that's not healthy for me. And I don't, I don't really need that relationship in my life because I've been surviving very long without it.
And so what do you say to her?
I say, I can't talk to you about any of this. I can't talk to you.
Has there been a good conversation?
No. I don't feel like I know her. I don't feel like I know her.
Where are you emotionally with that now?
I really don't think about it as much as you would think, because I think that some people have relationships with their parents and then they lose those relationships and then they reflect on them differently, like because the parent has died or because of what, whatever circumstances. But I don't have those memories to really reflect on. You know what I mean? I don't have times when I remember my mother having it together and really being a good mom and taking care of us. I don't remember feeling like,
I don't speak to my mother either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak to my dad. And I know that it is different because I do have memories, although in thinking back in the memories, they now get a little bit clearer and have tainted. But she was a good mother on a lot of levels, and she was there, and so was my dad. And it is weird how much I don't think about them. I really, I thought that I would think about them every day, just like, honestly, like when I had an abortion, I was thinking about it every day until I just stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
But then there are moments where there's a mother situation and it hits me hard.
Mm-hmm.
There is I'm supposed to have a mother.
Yeah. Sometimes. I remember a handful of moments, I would say, in my life that I felt like that. But I do think that sometimes specific, like I know I joke a lot saying like, oh, you and Keith are my parents, but I do find myself seeking out like relationships like that. And I think that I had a lot of relationships with teachers over the years who, were really instrumental in helping me become a young woman and helping me decide to, be okay with some of these things. So,
and more than our mothers were ever capable of doing.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Either they wouldn't or don't believe it or don't have the capacity to, or whatever it is that's blocking it, it never would have happened.
Yeah.
So in a way, these other mother figures are better. Or it's possible that there is no mother that you're supposed to have. There is these female influences that are necessary, especially when your major one is not the major one.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
sometimes that's sad.
It is. It is sometimes sad. And I can't say that I never, ever feel sad about it. I can't say that. Especially, I feel like if I'm, if I have to look at my phone and even ignore that call, it's not ever like a happy feeling, It's like, it's unfortunate that I even feel like I have to do this. And I hope that, honestly, one day down the road, I hope that I can get to a point where it doesn't feel this way.
Or it doesn't feel any way, where the number could just pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting that we're not talking about our dads.
Yeah. This is another part of the story that I'm so afraid to even tell you because I know it's going to sound so crazy. I'm going to tell you.
Well, I'm not interested. So.
So my father's name is not on my birth certificate. And, I lived with my mother until I was 2 and then my grandmother. And I just remember having conversations with my mother and asking her, who is my father? Where is he? And I remember her saying, oh, I think it's this guy. She would always say this one guy's name, but she would never say his last name or where he was or,
She would just say a first name?
Mm-hmm, she would just say a first name. So I'm in the last foster home that I lived in. I'm in this home throughout high school, and this is maybe a couple.
One home throughout high school?
Yeah, most of high school, I would say. One
Is
home.
that a good thing?
At the time, yeah, because it was pretty steady at the time. So it was good enough for me to just focus on school, which was such a crucial time for me to get ready to be an adult, you know. And so I get a letter from, I guess the state. I don't even, all these agencies, I don't know. And they're saying that they want me to take a paternity test with a guy who they think could be my father. And I remember them kind of explaining that he basically owed some back child support because these foster parents have been getting paid every year, or every month. So it adds up, and the government basically keeps a tab on you when you owe child support like that.
I was wondering why they had an interest.
Exactly. And I remember even, being 17, 18 at the time and understanding that that's what their interest was and that they didn't really care about me having a dad or knowing my dad. So,
but wouldn't that mean child support to you as well, or no? No, it would just mean into the system,
right? Because now I'm about to be 18. So it's him paying back what the foster parents have been getting, So we take the test, I swab, my cheek. I don't, it's like all in the mail. I don't see this guy. I don't talk to him. I only have the name on the piece of paper, but it's the same name.
Oh,
that my mother has been saying since I've, I if she had been like, oh, I don't know, but she always said this name.
So are you emotional about it?
Absolutely. I remember reading the letter and bursting into tears, thinking, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe that after all these years, here it is right here. Where is he? Like what's...
And did you know to feel good or bad about it, or you were just flooded with everything?
Just hysterically bawling and feeling everything.
And did you know that it's not the same dad as your brother?
Yes.
So
yes.
you couldn't really...
Right. We've always known that we have different dads, so that wasn't, an experience that we could share, unfortunately.
Yeah. But you did it.
Yeah. But, it wasn't even a choice. It was like,
oh, right.
We need to confirm so we can go after this guy. So
how long did they say it would take?
I remember they said it would take 4 to 6 weeks. And I remember marking my calendar. And I remember counting down, and I remember making sure that I checked the mail every single day. Oof. Like I gave myself like a 2-day grace period between the beginning of 4 to 6 weeks. And I remember on the 4th week, like the first day it came. And I remember the dad in that home that I was living at, I remember watching him read the letter.
Oh.
And
you didn't open, you didn't check it?
No, because these letters weren't coming addressed to me. Oh. They're my guardians. So I remember watching him open it and read it and then set it down and not saying anything to me.
Oh my God.
Not say a word. And him also maybe not realizing that I knew the letter was there because I had been checking the mail. But I knew I knew it. I knew what it was going to look like, that it was going to be an official paper and it was going to have, the department of whatever. So I remember I woke up really early the next day and I went into his file cabinet with a flashlight and I read it.
It's like a bad TV.
I know, but I was like, he's not going to tell me because obviously he doesn't understand, or maybe he thinks he shouldn't. I don't know. Like whatever. I don't know what they were trying to shield me from, but I felt like I needed to find out. So I read it and I said, yeah, that it was him.
Okay. What do you do with that?
So I'm trying to find this guy's information. He's not contacting me. They're not initiating any contact for us. They just said, hey, yeah, he's your dad. Anyway,
wow.
We're going to go get this money from him. Yeah, they didn't give me anything. And so I'm trying to find this guy and I cannot find anything on him because he's a cop and his records are locked. Yeah.
He's a cop.
He's a cop.
See, I'm thinking that he got locked up for something and his records got popped up. Because how else would you just find someone's dad?
That's what I remember them kind of trying to use as the excuse for why it took so long. Like, well, he was a cop. We couldn't find his his records. But I'm like, you didn't get this name from my mother yesterday. Like, this is something she must have told you guys a long time ago. And then you went back and really investigated.
Oh, so you think they had the name and were like, who cares about this?
Or maybe they didn't follow through. Or maybe they were telling the truth. Maybe they couldn't find him because he was a cop. But I don't know.
I didn't know cops couldn't be found.
Yeah, you can't look up cops. You can't look up their information because...
Oh.
Yeah, because it's like
That seems weird.
it's like a protection thing. I don't know.
Oh, because people might want to get to cops' families.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about your dad? Whether he had other kids or?
Yeah, I met him. And
How did you make that happen?
It makes me so sad that all of this sounds like a bad TV show. But this was like what I felt like at the time. I didn't feel like I had any other option. So
It only became a bad TV show because everyone was using the same premise. But when we first heard this story.
So I started like calling police stations in South Jersey because I figured, I knew that's where he had met my mom and that he probably had family from there. And I figured I'll just call police stations.
Asking for him by
because I
name.
have his name. I have his name.
Ooh, so every time you said the name, you must have had some kind of rush of something.
Yeah. And when the guy said yes, he said, he's not here right now though. Can I leave a message for him? And I said, yes. I said, just tell him that, this is my name. Give him my phone number.
Oh, so you weren't even pretending.
No, absolutely not.
You weren't worried that he would.
I needed to
run
answer.
from it.
I needed to answer that question for myself. I needed to hear his voice. I needed him to say, "Yes, I know that you are my daughter, and I don't care," or "No, I didn't know, and let's get to know each other."
But by you leaving your name,
Yeah.
see,
I opened up the door for him to potentially say no.
To not even respond to it. To now know how to avoid you. Had you considered that or no?
No.
Okay.
I
So you
was
thought
like,
one of those two things.
I have to answer this question. And I felt really prepared for either one. I felt very prepared. I said, if he cusses me out, whatever it is, I gotta have this conversation.
What'd you get?
Well, yeah, I guess it's not a TV show because it doesn't have like that really happy ending. Originally it was good. It was, I never denied you and I did try to find you, but you were in the system and I wasn't sure if you were my daughter and I didn't want to chase these kids as they're getting moved around, all those types of things. And, and your mother was, maybe doing drugs and I wasn't into that. And, so, he told me a pretty compelling story, I would say enough. But I had decided even before I heard his side that if he was willing to try to have a relationship with me, that I was going to be open to it and that I was going to be open to forgiving him for whatever had happened. I remember feeling that even before the conversation, but I also remember feeling not super convinced that he had done everything in his power,
Yeah.
Because he was, he got like remarried and he had another child and then, he was a cop and it just kind of seemed like
that takes effort.
It seemed like this was something that you maybe thought maybe wouldn't catch up with you. And it kind of did. So
were you upset when you found out that he had a family that he stood by and that he worked for?
No, I wasn't upset. I remember being excited. I remember feeling like, whatever happened between you and my mother is something that, doesn't really have much to do with me. And I do understand that she was doing other things and that it was a different time, but I can't get those years back, I remember feeling very confident that I couldn't get those years back and I didn't want to spend too much time trying to sort out those feelings. But
did you see him?
Yeah. Throughout college, I was in contact with him when I was in college in Philly.
What did you think of him?
In the beginning, I learned so much because it's crazy to meet someone and realize why you are the way you are, and why you were able to, use certain talents, because I feel like my mother, for all her issues, was very smart and was very ambitious, and my father, for all his faults, was very strong-willed and was very business savvy, very confident, very good speaker. And so I learned, in getting to know him, I got to know myself better. But it's really difficult to try to jump into someone's family and navigate that relationship. And his family, like his mother and father and his sister and brothers, are all Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow.
But
he's not?
He's not, he doesn't claim it, but he's, he's going with them on Sundays. He's going to the hall,
That stuff usually sets deep.
It was, I wish I could say it was easy, but it was not. It was very difficult to try to kind of jump into this family and be this long lost daughter. And it deteriorated pretty quickly, I would say. Within a couple of years, I was like, oh man, I don't know if this relationship is more helpful than when you weren't around, Like, I think this is making it a little more difficult for me to overcome these things, because I'm being reminded about, how caring you are and how caring your family is by seeing that they're not very caring, So I remember feeling like I've answered the question, and I do have his phone number that I can call him, but I can't say that we speak. Every once in a while he'll text me, but it's usually about like some mail or something. It's not, how are you?
And how do you feel about keeping the relationship where it is?
I feel like the last real conversation I had with my father, I was maybe like 22, maybe. I'm 28 now. And my conversation was, throughout college, I've tried to get closer to you and your family, and I've really tried to establish this relationship, and it's really been very difficult and damaging, and I'm feeling very, not loved. I remember, feeling really clear about this and confident that if I didn't get this off my chest, we weren't going to be able to continue. And I remember him reacting with a lot of anger.
Oh.
And a lot of, I've brought you into this family, and, I spent all this money. The government took all this money from me. Yeah, I remember it became this inflamed conversation where I was like,
wow,
oh my gosh, I don't think this is as helpful as I, like.
Did your heart break? Did you, or?
I mean, you get to know how people are when when you're experiencing trying to become part of their family, especially. You really get to know how they really are. You're in their home, So
it wasn't surprising.
Surprising, yeah. I guess it was surprising, yeah. But it was just like, I already knew I could survive without them. So to try to get into their family and to realize that it was very difficult and that I wasn't feeling like I was part of the family, it wasn't that difficult to just not call them anymore, because it wasn't like they were calling me and checking up on me. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds either. I don't know if maybe one day me and my dad will be able to sit down and talk about those things. But I know if I can't have a conversation with you and talk about you loving me and caring about me, then I don't know how we can go.
It seems like all these negative experiences really allowed you to hone in on what you expect of love. And whereas, myself included, other people hold on to some stuff like, no, they're good. in this way. And so you kind of stay in a relationship for too long where it stops benefiting you and the other person. You stop connecting, but you hold on to sort of like, I guess, a high. You seem to be more balanced.
Yeah, and also did go to therapy twice. I do think it's important that we acknowledge that, because if I wouldn't have gone when I was 10, and I was very suicidal at 10, if I wouldn't have gone then, I don't know what would happen. And then maybe when I was like 23 or 24, I did it again for a while. I think that was helpful. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I think a long time ago, I really decided that I wanted to decide how the story ends, you know? Like, I want to decide, and I want to have that power. And I deserve to be happy, and I deserve to take the good from all of this stuff. I deserve to capitalize on it. And it's also that thing about like stand-up comedy and art, and, you know, like, I know my story is crazy, I know, but I know comedians with crazier stories, you know? Like, I know that I wouldn't be this person if all those things didn't happen. And I really feel like I've gotten as close to peace with it as I can get. I really do. And it's been difficult. It has been difficult. You know, I've had to ask for help a couple of times, and I still probably will. But
what kind of help do you need when you ask?
Sometimes I need encouragement. Sometimes I need people to check in on me, because I feel like in adulthood, especially once I became 18, the reality of kind of being out in the world on my own started to scare me sometimes. Like, I remember having weird feelings like not knowing who to put as an emergency contact, or not knowing, like, if something happens to me while I'm out, whatever, if I get into a car accident, whatever, who are they going to call? Because I know you can go through my phone all day. There's nothing for mom, dad. There's nothing in there that has, you know, significance like that. And I remember that manifesting into anxiety for me sometimes. But I've had to just learn to manage each obstacle as it happens, you know?
That reminds me, at 18, you age out, right? That's what they call it.
Yeah.
You no longer are anybody's problem, so they don't have to place you anywhere.
Yeah.
But your brother's not anywhere near aged out.
He's not, no.
So as that age starts getting closer,
I'm thinking about it all the time, obviously, because
what do you, like, at 18, it's not like you can just be an adult. You know, your parents wouldn't kick you out. Are you anticipating the foster system just kicking you out?
I had been through high school extremely concerned with college, and extremely really just focused on making sure that my transcript was ready, and that I was going to go to college, and that it was going to be that was going to be my savior.
That was going to start your adulthood with a home and a structure.
Absolutely. And this is also, mind you, the time that I've just had a conversation with my father for the first time. And so, you know, now I have someone that I can potentially check in with, and that maybe can help, you know, as I'm transitioning into living on my own and being in college and living in the dorms and things like that. But I remember having, you know, conversations with my brother leading up to it, you know, explaining to him that I definitely was going to go to college, and I didn't really care where, but I was going to have to, you know, go out there and try to figure this thing out. But
and you would have to leave the state, I assume.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to an area where I felt I came from, really. I wanted to go back to the South Jersey, Philly area. And
where were you at the time?
At the time, I was in California. I was in Northern Cali. Yeah, this town called Vacaville. Yes.
Did you feel guilty feeling that way and knowing that it's going to happen, knowing that your brother is now going to be for the first time?
Absolutely. It was something that I felt super tormented about for years and years. But I do remember feeling like he was at an age that he was a little better to handle it. And I remember thinking that I was going to come back and visit, and that I was going to, I remember giving him my cell phone that I had had throughout high school, and knowing that I would, continue to make sure that that was, something we could contact each other on. And
did you see that he felt comforted by the setups that you were leaving behind? That
I did. But, even I can admit that later on in life, when we had conversations, he did acknowledge that, yeah, life was different after you left. And I did realize that not everything was as shiny as I thought it was before, but I was okay and I was able to manage. So it was a huge sacrifice, and it really, bothered me for a long time, especially when I first left, because, we had been with each other the entire time. We had always been together, that was home. But, I never had fear of going to a new place. I never had fear of starting over or being on my own. So it was something I felt like I had to do for us. So I was able to reconcile and at least get it done and not shed too many tears. But still.
Did he end up going to college?
Yeah, he did. He actually stayed in Cali, though. So he's still in college out there.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And did you actually end up visiting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he comes out here pretty often. I try to have him like for Christmas if I can. So yeah, we go back and forth.
That's awesome.
And we text often, so that's fun.
Did you stay in touch with any one of your foster parents?
Yeah, the people that we lived with when we were in high school, in California, yeah. Every once in a while, I would say, but most of our contact is Facebook.
That seemed like it seemed like you stayed there for a while, so I want to say it was a good experience, but
I know, and I wanna say that too. I genuinely do. It was the least hostile, but it was still,
chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. We still had to fight to survive. Absolutely.
Why? What was going on? Too many kids?
So many things. Like, I remember just feeling bullied by them. I remember
By the parents?
Yeah, I remember just having, conversations that were uncomfortable and feeling like we were talked to as if we weren't, regular kids. I remember definitely feeling like a maid. I remember feeling like that a lot of times. Like, I'm just Cinderella in this house and this is my purpose, So
what was your brother's purpose for them?
Like, unfortunately, fortunately, because he was so young, he couldn't, do too much. So, if he had been older, maybe he would have been mowing the lawn and doing things that were more whatever. But because I was the older one, those were things that I had to do. And those were.
Did they have a bunch of foster kids that had different chores?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you find them to be bad people? Like, did they have a different face on for other people than for you?
Absolutely. I just felt like.
Did they have their own kids?
Yes, but they were much older. They were much, much older. They had aged out of their own homes, but still were coming back and visiting. And
what were those kids like?
I would say pretty normal people, but I remember noticing animosity from them towards their parents as well. Like recognizing that their parents were not, I remember seeing outbursts where they would, speak candidly about the reality. Like, you're not in a position to have foster kids. Maybe you shouldn't have all these kids.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Like I remember seeing families, in turmoil over it.
And what was the parents' justification? None of your business, or I'm perfectly fine, I raised you, and
yeah, probably, yeah.
So they thought they were doing good.
Yeah. And
so that brings me to Natalie France on Facebook, who asks, any advice for those who want to foster kids?
I feel so bad for saying all these negative things about foster homes, but
I mean, how is that on you?
I know, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was making them bad, but
Yeah.
I think that you have to really be open to trying to love kids, you know, especially kids that are not yours. And I think you have to make sure that your reasons for wanting to open your home to these kids is really genuine, you know, because when you get tied up in things like money or circumstance, convenience, you're doing a disservice to these kids, and you're making it that much harder for them to get over the things that they're coming from already. So I think the only advice I could give would be to make sure that your heart is in the right place, because there's so many other things you can do instead of trying to raise a child or trying to partially raise a child.
Would you foster or adopt?
Absolutely. I feel like I really have an urge to like make one baby maybe and push it out. But other than that, I could be very satisfied only adopting or only being a foster parent. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's not even like an obligation that I feel like. I don't feel like I owe it to the system, but I feel like it's something, you know,
that you have to give.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just so many kids out there.
Would you be scared of?
Terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified that I would make this kid's life worse, or that they would be coming from a reality that I'm not ready to help them face. Yeah.
Yeah, that
sounds terrifying.
That's the fear, I think, you know, because you hear foster kids are so beaten physically, emotionally, and just drain on their life that they're coming to you with circumstances that you have no reference for even, except for in movies that are horrifying.
Yeah. Did
you see fear on people's faces when you walked in? I know that you were a good kid, but how would you assess that?
What do you mean?
Like maybe they're used to, you know, kids coming in with all the weight of other things, and you know they might want to overturn a table, or
definitely. I
or
think
just be angry in general.
I think they were all definitely pretty apprehensive when we first meet, but you could tell that some people were. This is something that they do all the time. They interact with kids all the time. They know how to make them laugh and make them feel comfortable, and some of their homes are built to make you feel that way. So,
wow,
it's,
that's frightening.
Is it?
It is, because they're so good at being the kind of warmth that they need to get the children, and not the kind of warmth that they need to raise children. Yeah. And that's it only feels like a manipulation. So the fact that they're good at it doesn't feel like it's a good thing.
And also there was I felt like a very specific difference between homes where religion played a heavy part. Like I felt like I remember living with a very, very like super Baptist family, and I remember feeling like that was more of their reasoning for taking in foster kids. Like, I want to impress these kids with this religion, and this is an easy way to do it, you know.
So did you keep any religion? Do you believe in God? You mentioned Christmas, but I feel like that's just a marker for Americans sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not religious. I think I celebrate most holidays, but I don't have like a strong opinion on whether or not people should be religious. And I always feel like if something makes you feel better, then you should do it. You know, if it makes you a better person, then you should do it. But I can't say that I find myself praying often, other than like to Saint Anthony. You ever hear that? Like Saint Anthony, when you lose something, I feel like I do that sometimes. But,
I see.
Like if you lose your keys or whatever. But I definitely feel like I feel so cliche to say spiritual, but I definitely feel that way. I feel like things happen for a reason, and that I'm connected to something, and that I don't feel like everything is bleak and there's nothing, you know. I don't feel that way, but I'm definitely not in church.
Okay.
I'm definitely not in church.
Some of what you were saying also reminded me, Daniel Perdue had a question about who taught you about sex and relationships.
Yeah.
And when I think about it, you know, my mom did my hair for way too long because I didn't even understand my hair. Neither did she when it came down to it. I mean, it was a mess. But things like that, who got you ready for school, who did your hair, who taught you about sex, masturbation? Did anyone talk to you about that?
I remember when I got my period. I remember that foster mom was out of town. I remember she was not in town. The foster dad was looking after us. And
Did you know what a period was?
yeah, to some extent, I felt like I knew, kind of, but I definitely didn't know what you were supposed to do about it. I didn't know about.
So you understood that you didn't have like a wound there, but you
Yeah.
didn't know. So that's pretty much what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay, I got it.
And I
Now
feel
what do we
like
do with it?
I had maybe read a couple of books that had referenced it, maybe, so I kind of had an understanding, but definitely wasn't, certain.
So what do? You got it, and
So I remember I told my foster dad, and I remember he kind of like freaked out a little, like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know.
which is so funny.
Right.
Please stop that. Please, really, just come on.
I was like, no, it's okay. Calm down. It's all right. But because his wife was out of town, I remember he went to our next door neighbor at the time. I remember she was like
Did
a
you know
young
her?
mom. Yeah, I knew her.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a young mom. I remember she had a bunch of boys. She didn't have any daughters. And so then a couple minutes later, she came over and she just had a talk with me. And she was like, this is what's happening. And these are pads. And here's how you'll use them. And, you're going to be fine. And, come over and knock on my door if you ever have any questions,
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I felt like I feel like I almost remember her giving me like an encyclopedia that was like, there was a page that was bent over. And when I opened it, it had like all the anatomy and like just all the things you really don't absolutely need to know. But she was trying to be helpful. Yes.
That's how I learned about sex from my actual mom.
Oh, really? She showed you a book?
She gave me a book.
Yeah.
I was horrified. I didn't want to talk about it at all. I couldn't believe that my mother did that 3 times. And
Embarrassing.
I thought, wow, she really must have wanted kids. And then when I learned that people do that for pleasure, I just refused to believe it.
Yeah.
And that was... I believed that for too long.
Yeah.
That my mother only had sex 3 times to sacrifice herself to the children god or something.
That's what sex is for, right?
Right.
That's what it's for.
Okay, let me see if we missed any questions here from Facebook because they had good ones, but I think we touched on them.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody asked about your views on the language of foster care and the negative view some have on foster kids being trouble.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it definitely saddens me, and I feel like I've definitely had conversations with people before where their first instinct when I've talked about foster care was to say something pretty negative or to make it seem like something's wrong with me, like you're all messed up, and that's why that's why you were caught up in this crazy system that you couldn't get out of, but.
There's a stigma on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like most of the time when I tell people, like, yeah, I didn't really know my parents growing up. I moved around a lot and I was in foster homes for a good deal of my childhood. Their first reaction is always like, oh, wow, but you seem so
right. I'm sure I did that to you.
No, but like they'll always use like a word that's kind of like,
you seem okay.
Yeah,
why?
But sometimes it can come from a place of warmth and they're excited to hear how I've overcome. And then sometimes it can come from a place where they're like, you're probably still messed up. Like they're not as open to the idea of people being okay or deciding to keep going forward, Well,
I think you had a good point that yes, that's what we know of the foster care system. That was your experience as well. Mm-hmm. But what we know about parents in general, I think we're making up that they are this, Disney, they always wanted to have a kid just because they had one. Like there are a lot of oopsies that really, biological or not, now you're looking at someone who looks like you, who hates you, you know, like who is abusing you, who is doing all the things that can happen to absolutely everybody in any system, including the one that we think is so perfect of if you have a mother and a father, then you will be loved and cared for because that's how a mother and father feel. Yeah. But it's not. There are lots of ways to neglect your children. There are lots of ways to feel indifferent about them. And there are lots of ways to mess them up, even when you have good intentions. Mm-hmm. So to point a finger and say, you for sure are messed up, I feel like you can say that about a lot of the history of people. When you know that my parents come, from Iran and Iraq, you put that on them. And it turns out you're right about a lot of those things, and the history of what we know about the psychology of children is very, very new. We used to hit other people's kids, talk to them in a very terrible, demeaning, and demoralizing way. I mean, we're just learning that. And then we go, further to the other end of the spectrum. Now we think they're being handled with gloves and, all that shit. So feel like we're always learning how to take care of kids, and someone's always getting the very terrible end of the stick. And it's not always necessarily the person that you think is the obvious recipient of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks to fill some sort of stereotype.
It does.
Yeah.
And I really wish I could, I wish it was different. Honestly, I wish it was, but and I feel
in a way you have to believe that it is, because foster care,
it can't, it couldn't have,
as a program, it sounds like a positive.
And I feel like, back then the checks and balances were probably, I would hope, not as extreme as they are now. Like, I hope that these families are being vetted a bit more than they were before. I hope that. I can only hope that, But yeah, it was difficult, and it's crazy. It really is crazy.
Well, thank you for telling me all about it. I'm sure that this isn't all about it.
I know.
But this is a lot, and I really appreciate it. And
thank you for listening.
I just think you're wonderful.
I appreciate that.
And in a way, this is just an excuse to talk to you for this long a time.
I know. It's about time we did this anyway.
So come over also.
Oh, I will. I will. You're going to be sick of me.
And I look forward to it. But thank you for sharing this with me and the people listening. And of course, the information is going to be on the website, and your Twitter handle and the way to follow you. And you are an incredible comic.
Thank you.
If you hear about foster care from you, you're drawing from every single place. There's not just you are masterful on stage.
Thank you.
I'm in awe every time. I know, guaranteed, it's going to be great. I have so much nice things to say, but don't take my word for it. Follow her so that you know when she's coming to your town, so that you know when you can see her on TV, when there's a web series that includes her, when you can see your talent. I think, go for it. Your Twitter handle is @Chanel__Ali.
Yes, 2 underscores. You got it. Yes.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, you do? Oh, good.
Yes.
Oh, good. Because some days I feel like, I don't know, maybe I should change it. And I'm like, there's no other option. It's
in there. Chanel__Ali. You guys can do that.
Yeah, that's easy. That's not too much, right?
Come on.
Just 2 of them.
Yeah. And then when you Google Chanel Ali,
you'll find all types of things, and you'll find my website, ChanelAli.com. And your listeners, they come to my shows and they're incredible. Like, the conversations that I have with them after a show are
awesome,
enlightening, and full of love. They're super positive.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah.
That's the kind of conversations I want all the time.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad we're having it. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you guys in the next episode.
What's my name show.com